Welcome to the Psych Gym. Let's hit the weights. Hi, it's been a while, and I'll tell you why it's been a while. I moved, and I thought that I would be able to keep up with everything, but y'all, when those of you who do the ADHD hyperfocus thing, you understand that as soon as I got here, it was like I can't do anything until everything is where it needs to go, right? Like, because it's just overwhelming, things that need to just be put away, decorations that need to be put up. I mean, everything, right? So, and this time I went from a smaller space to a bigger space. So, yeah. Anyway, you're going to hear something a little bit different from me today, mostly because of what just happened. I'm tangential, and I'm realizing how difficult that probably is to follow podcasts. So I'm taking a hint from Jenna Kutcher. If you do not listen to the Goal Digger podcast, and I said that so dramatically on purpose because when I tell people, they think I'm saying gold digger, and I'm not. It's Goal Digger. She's very successful at everything that she does, honestly. But one of the things that she said in one of the podcasts I was listening to is, she's like, I need like some sort of like script to go off of, or else my podcast would go all over the place. And I thought, let me try that. I'm just going to try that. If it seems inauthentic or I don't like it, I won't do it. But as I practice what I preach, like try it, try the thing that you think might be helpful in your success. And if it's not helpful, try another thing. So here you are getting to see this in real time, me trying something that's not normal for me. So anyway, today we're going to talk about a really important issue. It's very common. And so we're just going to jump right in. When a partner changes in a relationship, how do you know if it's genuine growth or just manipulation? This is something a lot of people struggle with, and it's easy to get caught up in, confusion around it, right? When somebody you love starts to act different, especially if you had a conversation about it, you want to believe that they are improving themselves and that your relationship is getting better. But, especially if you have any kind of trauma, you start to wonder, is this real change or are they just manipulating this situation to get what they want from me? So that's what we're going to talk about. So again, like I'm structuring this a little bit because I feel like I miss a lot of really great points when I go all over the place, and I don't want to start making this podcast, 2 hours long. So we're going to try to be succinct about this. First, we're going to talk about what genuine internal change is. Real change, typically it comes from a place of, self-awareness and reflection. Sometimes that happens in therapy or because of a significant life experience, something big happens, or there are times where you just sit and say, man, what am I doing with my life? Right? It's not change that has to do with impressing somebody, saving anything, being, earning accolades, feeling good about yourself, telling everybody how good you are or how much change. It's just about being a better version of yourself for your own well-being, regardless of really what else happens. The idea is that the other stuff would be like kind of a bonus, right? Like, so if I do something really good to feel good about myself and feel like I'm being a better person, the side effect of that, of course, is going to be that good things happen around you, but that's not why you do it. You're doing it because you can't handle how you feel anymore and you want to feel better. So when somebody is genuinely changing, you can imagine, and if you've ever been through this, it can be pretty empowering. And what it looks like might be better communication, somebody showing more empathy or sympathy, somebody being more patient, someone taking accountability for their past mistakes, talking about, the things that they're trying to change, things that they have done that they wish that they hadn't done, or that they realize why they've done it. And, just really kind of talking about that change. They see the value of the better impact that they have on themselves and everybody around them. They have love and genuine care for the connections and the effect that they have on people. It's not just about making a relationship work or getting somebody off your back or trying to get something really, material or otherwise. What is important to understand is that the process of this kind of change won't come with a string attached. So the thing about when you're trying to figure out if somebody is changing genuinely or if they are manipulating you, that's like a good place to think about it, right? Like, is there a string attached to this? Are they basically saying, if I change this, will you stay? Right? If I change this, will you stick around? That is a string being attached, and that's not usually a good sign that somebody's about to make some really great internal change because they understand it and value it for themselves. It's about personal growth that's, not self-serving in terms of what they can get. So we're going to remind ourselves right here that this sounds gorgeous and flowy and fantastic, but growth is not always this way, right? We all slip up. Genuine change isn't really about being perfect all the time. It's about acknowledging the things that have to change and just trying to do better over time. You can usually see, if you've ever been around somebody that you definitely have seen their genuine change, you can see the difference between when they are defending their shortcomings or defending their the things that they've done, or when they're kind of acknowledging them and like, like I have the ick about what I did also. Everybody else got it and so do I, and so I'm not into it and I'm not going to do that again. A person who's changing isn't going to get it right every time. And this is a problem, especially in relationships. I see this happening, right? Is that it's like, by the time, I always joke that by the time couples come to me, they're like done, right? It's like, this is the last resort and it should like be the first resort, right? So when people come to me, I'm like, you have to dig deep, man, because you haven't changed. You haven't tried change this way. So now you're going to have to be even more patient, because it is not going to just turn around. People can't change like that on a dime. You're going to have to understand that there's going to be slip ups, and we're going to have to not go grave digging and freak out about them and just believe that change isn't happening. And that happens a lot. So I will tell you that sometimes interrupts somebody's change cycle is, if they're trying really hard and they slip up and then somebody just beats on them about it. Think about it. Even when I just said it out loud, I mean, you're like, depending on the kind of person you are, if you are a rebellious person, like you're like out of spite, not going to change, right? You're like, well, if you're not going to appreciate my efforts, then why should I do it? And they're caught up in the situation, right? And that's not even really about them not wanting genuine change. That's them saying like, I can't give you something that you are not going to accept. So let's, kind of think about that it's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies. It's going to be a little bit difficult sometimes. And you can tell that person is frustrated and not proud of their actions when they, slip up. And that sometimes can help us dig deeper and have a little bit more patience. So what does it look like when somebody is doing that though, right? When they are telling you that their growth is essentially so that they can get something that they want from you. You might hear something like, I have changed and nothing matters. Why do I even bother? And that's, sometimes a hint. And I just want to kind of pause here to remind everybody that when you're listening to these kinds of things, I don't want you to take them as hard and fast rule, right? So if somebody says out of frustration and pain and they're crying and they're losing it and they say, nothing matters. Why am I even bothering if you don't believe in me? That doesn't always mean that they're manipulating you. Sometimes that means that you're being a little too harsh on them. You're not giving them enough space to make this change. And that's important to think about because we need to be able to do that, right? We have to give people room to change. So let's talk about the hidden agenda of manipulation. The thing about manipulation is that it looks a lot like change. And this is why you're here probably, because you're like, I want to know the difference. To me, I think that depending on the person, sometimes it's very easy to see when somebody's manipulating. You can see somebody turn on the charm. And then there's other times where people are dipping in and out of it and it's very hard to tell. And then there are times where it is super obvious that somebody's manipulating you. And again, no hard and fast rules about this, but we're just trying to get a little information in you so that you can think about this. So I think we all kind of know a little bit about manipulation, right? And in a relationship, especially, somebody might look like they are changing so that they can improve the relationship. But the motivation is control or influencing the dynamic, right? Getting what they want. It sometimes can be subtle, right? It's not always super obvious where they're just kind of like flipping the switch and speaking sweetly and then just asking you for what they want immediately after, right? It would be awesome if that happened because it'd be so much easier. When somebody's manipulating you, you might hear things that sound like, look how much I've changed for you, which is more about guilt tripping or making you feel like you should be grateful or more understanding of their behavior. So listen, y'all, if you are changing, don't say that shit, right? Do not ever tell somebody that you're changing for them because that tells everybody right there and yourself, honestly, if you're saying it, that you are not in this for the right reasons. And so you've got to stop and think about why you're doing this because it's not going to stick around. Genuine change does not stick around if it is for somebody else. I make this comparison all the time because when you've worked in addictions, you kind of see that. You see the difference in when somebody's changing because they're like, oh, like my family's going to cut me off or, my significant other is going to divorce me if I don't get this together, and they're trying, but they're trying with a different, it's not outright manipulation. It's not horrible, control manipulation. It is fear-based control manipulation, right? Like I can't lose this thing. And then, and I've seen it happen before, you can tell the difference between when somebody is done, they're sick of their own shit. They're just, something's got to change and I'm into it. You can tell the difference. I can tell the difference because of what I do, to be honest. My bullshit meter is a little bit better. In my personal life, my bullshit meter might be good, but then I'm also way too empathetic. So for those of you who get manipulated, I 1000% get it. I've been manipulated more times than I would like to admit because I want people to want to change. And so I will give them excuses, even if they haven't made one for themselves. So there's that. Sometimes, you notice if you're paying attention that they're trying to buy time in the relationship. They're looking for attention or praise. They're hoping that you're going to celebrate their growth every step along the way without actually questioning the rest of it. How do you feel? What's changing in your belief systems, what the people actually understand about why their behavior is. Look for that. That's a good thing to look for is, if somebody's just changing because they say, oh, well, me being angry gets everybody else angry. Like, okay, that's okay. But do you not care about why you're getting angry? Do you want to feel less angry as a person? Because that person who's fed up with their own anger is more likely to do some internal change because they're going to have to. They're going to have to figure out, hey, why does that give me a hair trigger response? I need to know that about myself. And then I'll dig into my belief systems and I will change them. I will no longer think that that is something to rage about because I will have learned how to not believe it's something to rage about. Sometimes you can really feel that the person is performing, which is, again, like if you see this stuff and you're ignoring it, the problem isn't the other person, the problem is you. And I say that with love because the problem has been me many times in my life. I get it. You also do have to know, though, that sometimes that fake it till you make it is a real thing. So sometimes they are performing. Sometimes you can see them go, oh, no, that's not what I'm supposed to do. And it's them processing the pause and the change of behavior and not necessarily stopping and going, ooh, I need to manipulate this person. Again, like one size does not fit all with all of this stuff. It's not as easy as a checklist. Oh, check, check, check. You're manipulating. Check, check, check. You're changing. It's not that easy. It's complicated, which is why it keeps happening. A lot of times you will feel it though. If you feel pressure to validate somebody, or if you feel pressure to continuously put your needs to the side because the other person needs you to bend over backwards as they change, that's not a good sign. That's something you, should definitely be paying attention to. If you call them out or question it, if they turn that around on you and get defensive and won't actually talk about the change process, usually a pretty good sign that we're not in the great place of change. The thing about manipulation, true manipulation, not fear-based control tactics, whole other podcast. I will make sure that I write that down. Manipulation is about control and getting what you want. Somebody who is actually manipulative, somebody who is actually thoughtfully manipulative, is not going to be open to hearing your concerns, your perspectives. They're going to be defensive. They're going to deflect your feelings. They're going to try to make you feel like you're the one with the problem. Somebody who's really growing is generally pretty humble, wants to be open with discussion no matter how difficult it might be. They're curious about your feelings and thoughts. They're open, for that input. A truly growing person really shouldn't be trying to make you feel guilty for pointing out when something isn't right, or if something is hurting you, or and anything really. I mean, we've talked about this a lot in life is, we should be able to talk about our feelings without being gaslit and invalidated. So how do we tell the difference? I know it's really hard, and I'm going to give you like kind of a list of stuff, but I want you to know that it's bigger than this list as per everything. I'm just trying to help you out a little bit because you can't be sitting in this space with me talking things through and doing it as a special situation. I want you to try to do that though. Every situation is different. So if you have a trusted person or a professional that you can sit down with so you can talk about things, somebody who can tell you if you have a tendency toward being paranoid, because if you have a tendency toward being paranoid, you will see every action as manipulation, even when it's not. And so you need to be able to sit down with somebody who's going to call you out on that, who's going to say, hey, I don't think that that's what's happening. Here's what we should do. Here's part of the detective work. All my clients know this. You hear me say it all the time. Detective work. We're going to be detectives. We're just going to check it out. We're not going to do anything. We're going to observe, and we're going to observe when your trauma comes in to tell you the entire story about why they're doing everything and what they're doing and all that, and what other possible things could be happening or what they're telling us is happening, and, kind of do some fact checking. But so I'll give you just a couple things. Consistency. You can generally, and this takes time, right? Boo, all of this takes time. Genuine change is often slow and steady. It is consistent. Manipulative change tends to be more inconsistent, where you see them be really great for a while and then really not great for a while, not just for a moment, but for a while. You might notice them going back into those behaviors, but instead of taking responsibility, they're deflecting or making excuses. And that would be, the key to knowing that there's manipulation going on, or not genuine change, not necessarily manipulation, but just not genuine change. It's not taken hold. We all make mistakes along the way. Again, not about perfection, but it's really in how those mistakes are handled, right? If we are able to say, I fucked up. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. I know I thought about it like for a half a second. I didn't pause long enough. And like, I'm just sorry, which goes into, the next one, accountability. Genuine change involves taking responsibility. Someone who's truly changing will acknowledge when they slip up and they'll work hard to make it right. You'll see that that's what their goal is. Manipulation, we're going to shift some blame onto you or other people, right? Because it's not about me. It's about how everything else and everyone else is the problem. You might hear things like, I wouldn't have done that if you hadn't said X, Y, or Z, or I changed, but you're not appreciating it. And you may be made to feel like you're always at fault, which is a red flag. We always have to make sure we're handling our own triggers, though, and there are going to be a lot of them if you're deep into a relationship with someone like this. It's not that we all don't have accountability moments. We all need accountability moments. But really often when you're with somebody who's unhealed and not willing to do the true work, the accountability you need to have with yourself is why you are not seeing the truth of the situation. Right? Boo. We don't like that one either. We don't like it when it's like, oh, you're always this, you're always that. Okay, then why the hell are you here? Truly, ask yourself, why am I here? If this person is always this way, never changing, says they're going to change, never changes, what am I doing? I'm a problem here too. I am a problem. The next thing is think about the focus of why they're changing. Is the change happening because they want to be a better version of themselves? Or is it because they want to control your perception of them or other people's perceptions of them? If the change revolves around making the relationship easier for them or getting you to behave a certain way, it's more likely manipulation. How can you tell, though? Right, Vanessa? How can I tell? Most people, when they are feeling the change is good, that they want for themselves, they'll talk positively about what they're learning, or they'll talk about, the gratitude that they have for how the changes are making them feel. And you can tell the difference. Again, like you can tell when somebody's looking for accolades and somebody is just beaming with pride. If you just think on that for a moment, you really can do that. You all have beautiful intuition that sometimes you're not listening to. It's not about, wow, people are more willing to give me things if I'm nice. I mean, that's a pretty obvious one, right? You can tell I wrote that one scripted. But it's definitely, you'll hear things like, I feel so much more peaceful. Life really is easier this way. I feel good. I'm not afraid to go here, there, whatever. I'm not afraid of phone calls. I feel like I can express myself. I feel like I understand myself. You just start to hear people speak differently. And I know that not everybody talks like a therapist. I get it. I wish everybody did. It would be so much easier, but they don't. So it's not going to always just sound exactly like that, but we can also help. Again, we can help if somebody is not very good at talking about this stuff. We can ask them questions and see how they speak about their change. And the last thing that I want to kind of talk about when it comes to kind of telling the difference of whether you're being manipulated or if you're kind of around somebody who's really trying to change is the idea of emotional pressure. This is such a big thing. A manipulative partner is going to put pressure on you to validate their change, like pressure. If you don't give them validation, they might make you feel like you're not being supportive or understanding. Yeah, I know. As soon as I said it, I was like, I've been there, right? Definitely been there. Like, oh, aren't you so proud of me? Like, then there's a difference again of somebody saying that because they're trying to get something from you or kind of joking around, right? Like I've done it before, where I say, aren't you so proud of me? I wanted to say, right? Like I wanted to say blah, blah, blah. And I didn't. I stopped myself. Validate me, right? Because I'm in total awareness that I'm looking for validation. And I'm giving it to myself, but I'm like, hey, join the party, right? Like I'm celebrating that I did something awesome and you can join the party. You don't have to join the party. And if you don't join the party, I'm not going to, jump down your throat about it. Again, that being the difference. A genuinely changing partner or person in your life will not need constant praise. They'll be secure in their growth and they won't demand your approval. Again, they might celebrate your approval. They might love your approval. They might revel in feeling so good after having felt so bad. But if their their drive to change depends on you telling them that they're doing a good job, that's not good. If they are not going to change without you telling them over and over again that you're super proud of them and that because that's you feeding into it, right? That's you saying, oh, I'll be here. I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm right here. As long as you keep doing it, I'll be right here. And that's not what we want, because the second that we take that away, they're going to stop doing it, right? You're giving constant validation to the part of them that's wanting moment to moment confirmation that they are not going to lose what they want. It's moment to moment. Again, sometimes, most of the time, fear-based control, but we are playing a part in it, right? We are enabling it when we are, giving into the emotional pressure. So what should you do if you're not sure about what's happening? I mean, trust your gut. I'm going to say it, intuitive counselor over here. What is your gut saying? And the difference between your gut instinct, your intuition, and your trauma is usually the story, right? Your intuition might go, I don't know. Your trauma is going to go, well, here's exactly what they're doing because I've seen this before, either from them or from other people. This is exactly why they're doing it. They are only doing it to hurt me. Like, that's your trauma. Like, your trauma will take the story and run with it. Your intuition is like, just pay attention, right? Like, it just pops its head up to go, right? Like, something's not right and we're not sure what it is. Your feelings matter. If something doesn't feel right, or if you're feeling drained or confused, just take a step back and reflect on it. Ask yourself, do you feel like these changes are good and are empowering to that person, or are you feeling more controlled than ever by this process with this person? Obviously, you can talk to a therapist or a trusted friend to get a fresh perspective. Somebody who's going to tell you the truth, though. We all have the hype girls in our lives and hype boys in our lives that are going to, yeah. But we need some people that are going to go, I don't know, you're being a little crazy. I think maybe we can calm down a little bit. Give it time. An outside perspective can help you see patterns that you might be missing, or they can confirm your suspicions if something feels off. But don't be afraid to set boundaries. If you feel like your partner's change, or I keep saying partner because this feels very relationship, like it happens a lot in relationships, but it can be anybody in your life. If you feel like their change is making you feel more insecure or or having difficulty trusting your own instincts, it's okay to talk about that. Speak up. If you have a healthy relationship of any kind, it needs to be built on mutual respect, trust, and growth. It can't be conditional on these manipulative behaviors, right? We have to be able to connect on an emotional level in order to create like that good bond that we're all looking for. So as I've said a billion times in this episode, there's no clear-cut way to know what's going on. This is kind of an oversimplification of the concept, this podcast, the whole thing. Again, I'm trying to be helpful. But as I talk about these things, you guys know I don't like blanket statements. And I feel like sometimes these podcasts and that we're listening to are very blanket statements. And because we're in pain, we are willing to run with anything that makes us feel good. Right? So if it aligns, we're like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And I know it because I listened to it on Vanessa's podcast and she said it was manipulation. Like, don't go doing that. Don't dirty my name like that. I told you a lot of times that every situation might be different and that your trauma may get in here and make this a little bit harder. There is no checklist. Some behaviors are going to mimic change that are not true change. And some people are going to feel and look inauthentic when they are truly trying, simply because they have a lot of work to do in that department, and especially in emotion expression. So it's really important to learn how to decipher the difference between your trauma and your intuition, and to see every person and situation as individual. And lastly, and definitely not least, make sure that you're taking good enough care of yourself that these situations can't hijack you and control your emotions. A strong sense of self-safety makes all of this easier, everything easier, because you're more detached from the outcome of other people's actions as your basis of safety. Bam. So we're going to wrap it up. I have no idea how long I've been going on. But just remember, genuine change comes from a place of self-awareness and is often characterized by humility. It's about personal growth for the betterment of oneself, not about changing to manipulate a relationship or friendship. Manipulation, on the other hand, is about control and shifting dynamics to serve a person's needs at the expense of another person. As always, learn how to lean into your intuition, to trust yourself as well. You deserve a relationship and friendships and connections where you can grow, evolve, and thrive together without the fear of manipulation. So thanks for listening today. If this resonated, I'd love to hear that in whatever form that is. You can send me a DM on social media. You can drop a comment below, send me a message and share your experience. If you have other questions about it and you want me to clarify anything, go right ahead, because I am so down for getting more topics to talk about. I always want to give what people are looking for and not just what I think is interesting, because I think everything is interesting and we don't have enough time for that. So don't forget to subscribe and share if you think that somebody can use this podcast. And until next time, take care of yourself. Love y'all. Thanks for listening. To learn more about what I do and how to work with me, head to thepsychgym.com to check it out. Keep lifting, y'all. It's worth it.